1300 WIMG and WZBN Channel 25 are dedicated to serving the many communities within our area. One thing that is very apparent is the increase of violence in the country and this area as well. WIMG and WZBN are dedicated to do their part constructively to put a halt to the escalation of crime. And now, the moderator for this evening's program.
And welcome to Violence Serves No Purpose, and you're listening to WIMG 1300 on the AM dial, and over the internet we can be heard at WIMG1300.com, and if you're watching on television, it's WZBN Channel 25, Mercer County, New Jersey. I'm your host, Jacque Howard, and tonight our guest is Reverend Dr. D.A., that's right, Delta Alpha Graham. D.A., welcome to the program.
Thanks so much, Jacque.
And before we get into some details, tell everyone out there the story that you told us at Westminster Presbyterian Church on Sunday when you preached and let the Lord tear the house off of it, of how you came from beautiful Southern California to New Jersey.
Well, I was actually approached to come to work at Princeton University as the university ombudsperson. My background is in conflict resolution and diversity, and so, after working at San Diego State University for a few years, I was, approached about coming to Princeton to work here, and so one of the things that was very interesting to me is I had heard of Princeton University, but I had never known where it was, especially growing up in the South.
And what part of the South?
Alabama, Mobile, Alabama. And so Mardi Gras is going on right now. Yeah. So they're having a really good time that I talked to my parents today. But we actually, like I said, knowing about Princeton, but not knowing. So even when the HR person called about the interview, and I was like, where will we be going? And so she was saying Princeton, New Jersey. I was like, New Jersey, okay. And so, so we ended up, landing the position and moved here in the middle of February of 2008 from beautiful downtown San Diego to
sunny and 80 all the time.
At least 75.
Well, anyone who's in the listening audience, you probably know that we are not experiencing anything near 70.
God.
And very little sunshine.
Yes.
So I apologize.
But this is the most mild winter we've had since I've been here.
You hear that, everybody? If the weather changes overnight, it is D.A. Graham's fault. He can be found somewhere in Princeton.
That's right. No, I'm in Trenton.
Oh, you should have said Princeton. But what I'm going to do is just read a laundry list of his education. We've got the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa, Bachelor of Arts in Speech Communication, Masters of Arts in Rhetorical Studies, Interdenominational Theological Center in Atlanta, University of Oklahoma, Capella University in Minneapolis, and on and on and on. Instead of your education, let's talk a little bit about your military background, because
Sure.
I know the listening audience would love to hear about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I joined the Navy Reserves when I was 17 years old because I wanted to buy a car.
Did you buy the car?
Yes.
What'd you get?
Pontiac Grand Am. It was my parents' car.
All right.
And so the reason was I wanted and so they told us that you could get a $2,500 bonus. So this was 1986. And $2,500, man, I could buy a car, right? And so what I didn't realize that they were going to split that bonus into three, over a period of 6 years, into three payments. But with the first installment, I did end up buying. And so I was a hospital corpsman for 11 years and was a participant in Operation Desert Storm in 1991. And I love the military so much, and at this same time, though, I was now in ministry, and I had been in ministry for a while, at least as a young person, and loved being in ministry. And I wanted to find a way to be an officer, right? Because I was enlisted, and so I found out about the chaplaincy program that the military had, and so I was able to. That's when I went to the Interdenominational Theological Center to get my Master's of Divinity, and after that went active duty as a military chaplain for the United States Navy, and served with the United States Marine Corps in Okinawa. Did a deployment to Iraq, and so had an opportunity to really serve with some wonderful, wonderful young men and women of these United States. And I wrote a letter to the Secretary of the Navy when I got ready to leave, thanking him for the opportunity. For me, I believed I had the best position in the military because that cross could take me from admirals to seamen. And so we were able to interact at every level of the military, and I really appreciated that.
That's awesome. A lot of people don't understand, and I didn't either. But let's tell the folks about being a chaplain in the Navy, how that also put you in communication with the Marines.
Sure. Well, the Marine Corps is a department of the Navy, and if you listen to them, they will tell you that they are the men's department. So I love those guys. And so even as a hospital corpsman, I was with the Marines as well. It's what my coding was in 8404. So I was a field corpsman with the Marine Corps. And so what happens is the Marines don't have their own medical or religious services. And so they use the naval personnel to serve as medical personnel and their religious needs. And so you can either go green or you can go blue. And I was grateful to be able to go green for the majority of my career with the Marine Corps.
Okay, great. Now, I'm sure that also helped you with your first introduction to conflict resolution.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I wrote an article in the Journal of it's the Journal of the International Ombudsman Association, comparing and contrasting military chaplaincy with ombudsing, which an ombuds is a conflict resolution specialist. Yes. And so my first job out of the military, February 28, 2005, was my last day on active duty, and San Diego State University was looking for a student ombudsman, and I read the job description and I said, "Oh my God, this is what I've been doing, for the past 6 years with the military." And I interviewed, and come to find out that they agreed, and they hired me as a student ombudsman at San Diego State University. And so with my background in conflict resolution from, my degrees and working in the military, helping to resolve conflicts, and a lot of those are employee conflicts, right? When a junior sailor or Marine has an issue with their gunnery sergeant or their captain or their lieutenant or their sergeant, right? It is a part of my job as a chaplain was to go in and try to help resolve those issues at the lowest level possible.
Excellent.
And so that was my introduction outside of my education with mediation, negotiation, but that was the work that I did. And I was the first student ombudsman at the University of Alabama, which was a wonderful pleasure to be able to be chosen by the president of the University of Alabama.
So I've got a question for you, because looking at all your academic achievements, when it comes to rooting for a school in sports.
Come on now.
No, hey, I'm just saying.
Come on, you don't even have to ask. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. All right, y'all heard it here. Roll Tide, and that's for the University of Alabama.
Yeah, national champs.
Now, I guess
Football.
in baseball you would take San Diego State.
No, I mean I love Brother Gwynn, but I love San Diego State. I'm just not a big baseball fan.
All right. Okay. See, more information here, and when he gets the emails and so forth, then he'll have to apologize for that. So I'm going to take a short detour and talk a little bit about your consulting company that you have. But let me give out the information first on that. It's D.A. Graham, Ph.D., MDiv, et cetera, et cetera. I can't read all those letters after it. But he can be reached via email at D.A. Graham, Graham, at consultant.com. And it's dnaconsultingllc.com. And he is based out of Trenton, New Jersey. So folks listening and watching, he's another member of the Trenton 350, someone who's committed to the city and community, and brings a wealth of knowledge and experience here. So D.A., talk a little bit about your consulting business.
Sure. Well, my wife and I intentionally moved to Trenton when we moved here to California. From California. We wanted to be a part of a city where we could try to make a difference. And we looked at, our real estate agent was probably really peeved at us, because we probably looked at about 80 homes before we actually settled on the home that we purchased in Glen Afton. I have been in the consulting business for a little while now, and what we do training and human performance improvement. The purpose of that is to help individuals improve their performance, improve their opportunities to be better in the workplace and in their personal lives. So we do one-on-one coaching, we do executive coaching, we do life coaching, career coaching, problem solving, conflict coaching, and things like that. So we also do work in organizations that need training for employees, and so we cater the training, and we also do the consulting piece where we go in and do an assessment, and so we articulate, we do the assessment, and then we try to align everything to what's needed in the organization.
Great. Now, can you talk a little bit, we've got a little over a minute or so before break, about Beautiful Trenton and your involvement with that local organization?
Absolutely. I had the opportunity to be introduced to Beautiful Trenton through some great guys, Roland Martin, Andrew Sullickson, who was also working at Princeton at the time. And so back in 2008, had an opportunity to start with these guys, not necessarily from the ground, but it was pretty early on in the process. And the process was, we wanted to have an organization that would educate the electorate about the election that was coming up. And to figure out a way that we can continue to have a dialogue. A part of my training, again, is in intergroup dialogue. And so we wanted to be able to do whatever we could to help create a dialogue in the city of Trenton about what's going on. And these group of people meet every Tuesday morning at Sunset Cafe there on South Warren Street.
Sunrise
Cafe.
Jamaican
it's been
cuisine.
A little while since I've been there. And Sunrise Cafe, South Warren Street, every Tuesday morning at 7:30. And dedicated people to helping Trenton be as beautiful as we all see it. And so the work that they're doing is important. And again, the election cycle is coming up again. And we wanted to create these cafes. And you got to know, as a matter of fact, I think that's where we met.
Absolutely.
At one of the cafes where people can come and dialogue about what they wanted the city and the politicians to do. So.
Okay, great. And it's also important to know that Beautiful Trenton was also part of the Fix Trenton's Budget program to an extent. You kind of pig off each other?
Fix Trenton's Budget was one particular part, but they asked Beautiful Trenton to do what we do best, and that's, to create buzz and to create dialogue about the budget process.
All right. So at this point, we're about to take a break, but I'm going to give out some more contact information. I'm speaking with D.A. Graham of D.A. Graham Consulting, DNA Consulting.LLC. The contact information is 888-374-8184. Email address is dagraham, GRAHAM, @consultant.com or DNAconsultingLLC.com. You can also Google Beautiful Trenton to find out some information about some of the things that DA has been involved with. And after the break, we will be getting into some more conversation with the Reverend Dr. D.A. Graham, and we'll be talking about conflict resolution. And you are listening to Violence Serves No Purpose, and you're listening over WIMG 1300 on the AM dial, as well as on the internet, WIMG1300.com. Thank you very much.
Breaking news alert for women using the birth control drugs Yasmin, Yaz, and Ocella. Recent medical studies show an increased risk of blood clots and possible gallbladder problems. If you or a loved one has experienced any of the following: blood clot-related injuries, heart attack, stroke, deep vein thrombosis, pulmonary embolism, or gallbladder removal or surgery, you may be entitled to substantial financial compensation. Call now for a free case evaluation, 800-507-7293. If you or a loved one use the birth control drugs Yaz, Yasmin, or Ocella, time is limited to file a claim. Act now. You may be entitled to substantial financial compensation. Call 800-507-7293. That's 800-507-7293. Protect your legal rights today. Call 800-507-7293. The attorney responsible for this advertisement is Carrie L. Steigerwalt, admitted in California, office address 4350 Executive Drive, Suite 150, San Diego, California 92121. Cases may be referred to or independently handled by separate local counsel for principal responsibility.
And good evening and welcome back to Violence Serves No Purpose. My name is Jacque Howard. You are listening to the program over WIMG 1300 on the AM dial, also on the internet at WIMG1300.com, and on television, WZBN Channel 25, Mercer County, New Jersey. And I'm speaking with the Reverend Doctor, I'm going to keep saying that, D.A. Graham of DNA Consulting.
I laugh every time you say that because I'm not used to people calling me that.
So that's a shout out to Karen Hernandez, who actually made a point to let you know that. I was blessed by being in the presence of D.A. preaching on Sunday at Westminster Presbyterian Church for Black History Month. And I knew the man was electric, but I didn't know he could sing. I saw a little bit of dance moves in him, and I think he probably even did some shadow boxing while he was in the pulpit. But we have a DVD of that, and you will get a copy of that and see what the buzz is
David
in the local community. Yeah, shout out to David and Linda Byers as well. So DA, let's move on and talk about your experience in conflict resolution, and specifically, how can we look at that as how we can change the community in here in Trenton immediately?
I think one of the things that is inherent in conflict is when people feel like they are not being heard. Okay? Conflict happens when it's what you call a perception of incompatible aspirations, right? It's what we call paia. It's when both parties perceive, or more than one party perceive, that there is an incompatibility with what I want, right? And 9 times out of 10, people argue from what we call positions, right? You have a position, and the person I'm having an argument with has a position as well. And so what we need to do, though, is to get to their interest and what is the issue, right? And a lot of times that comes from hearing their story. And most times it's really hard when people are in conflict for you to hear the other person's story, because the only thing you're thinking about is your own defenses, right, and defending yourself. And again, you're not thinking about what their interests are. You're not thinking about what their needs are. Really, you're just being self-serving at the time. And if we can help people, what we try to do is help people turn that around and understand. If we can help people understand why they want what they want, right? So let's say in government. So let's take the riots that have been happening in foreign countries, right? What they call the Arab Spring. What you have are a populace of people who say, we need to be heard, and we're sick and tired of not being heard, and so we are going to make ourselves heard. We're going to do civil disobedience. We're going to stand here. We're going to make you hear us. And I always ask people, how do you know that when you hear someone? And a lot of times it's when you can repeat back to them what they've said to you, right? And a lot of times when people are in arguments, and if I have two disputants in my office, I will ask one of the respondents, like, so what did you hear Jacque say? And, well, I heard he said he just didn't like me. Yeah. Well, okay. But what did you hear? So that's what you internalized, but what did you really hear them say, right? And once that person begins to paraphrase, right, and ask questions, it begins to open the other person up. So usually people come to a conflict like this, right? Conflict in the Latin is conflictus, right? It means to strike together, right? So if I'm closed, if both parties are closed, then I need to figure out a way to open them up and find a way not to conflict, but to do what? Find an integrated problem solution, right? And the only way we're going to open them up is to get to the why, right? And we need to get to the issue. What is the real issue here?
So what I like to do is take that, the message that you just delivered, which I believe is perfect, and I think that it is very specific as to the problems that we have in most inner city areas. Sure. So how do you feel not knowing your neighbor compounds the conflicts?
I think it tends to lend to the escalation, because what I don't know, I make up, right? So what I'm not informed about, I perceive in my own mind what I think you're thinking about me, right? Or if I have an interaction with you that's negatives across the fence, or, a lot of neighborhoods around here, they don't have fences, right? And so it's just yard to yard. And so I was really surprised about that when I moved here too. And if it was the first thing I do, I put up a fence in my backyard. But I put up a 4-foot fence is what they call the good neighbor fence, right? With the slats where you can see through, because I had dogs. So I didn't want the dogs getting out. I wasn't putting up the fence to try to create a border. But the more we can assert ourselves and say to our neighbors, hello, how are you? We can speak to them. We can, even if there's an issue, right? So I had an issue when I first moved here. I had a neighbor who thought that my dogs barked too much, right, at a certain time of the day. So he would call me. I was in Detroit one time. He called me on my cell phone. He's like, the dogs are barking again. And
I'll get right on that.
I was like, but one of the things that I've learned, and here's one of the quick ways that you can resolve issues without losing position. I teach people how to apologize without having to move, again, from their position. So I can apologize to my neighbor for the impact, or I can apologize to him for the perception, right? So in this case, I need to apologize for the impact of my dogs barking at a particular hour of the day or night that it's having on him, right? And if I can apologize genuinely, Jacque, I apologize for the impact of my dogs and their barking on your hearing or your silence in your own home at night and the disturbance that you feel is happening. It now opens up a dialogue. It disarms my neighbor, right? It disarms him. But if I go and say, I don't care what you think, my dogs have a right to bark. They're
house.
in my yard, right? It's my house. They're not in your yard. Now what we've done, we've gone from a baseline of calm and we've gone to anxiety. We've created a level of anxiety now. And in anxiety, right, we have physical changes, right? We start sweating, right? You see it in the cartoons, right? Blood pressure goes up, adrenaline starts pumping, right? The blood flows from your smaller extremities to your larger extremities because you're going back to your Neanderthal reptilian days, that amygdala, right? Yeah. That part of your brain that tells you that there is a threat, right, nearby. And so you still have that part of your brain. And so when now I'm anxious and now I'm moving, because it then escalates. So you come back at me and it's like, I don't care if you don't, I'm going to call the police, right? Or I'm going to call the dog catchers or whatever they do, right? And so, oh no, you're not going to call the dog. Rather than, I hear what you're saying, Jacque. I understand that you're frustrated right now. But is there a way? So now you're anxious. What I need to figure out a way to do is to de-escalate you, right? But I'm not doing that, right? So I'm going to escalate you some more just for the purpose of this example. So now we escalate to the next level, and it's called agitation. Now you're agitated. When you're agitated, you are physically showing that you are ready to do one or two things. Psychologists call it flight or fight, right? So most of us are conflict avoiders by nature, right? But there are those of us who will stand and defend no matter what. But guess what? Once I get to agitation, there's only one level left. You know what that is?
What's that?
Violence.
Oh, there we go.
Right? Violence. And so what happens is I need to figure out a way to de-escalate this before it goes into violence. And violence happens in several ways. It can happen in passive-aggressive ways, or even passive ways. And so what we try to teach people is to how to be assertive. How to talk about what you need and what you want, but also taking into account what the other person needs and wants as well. And so that's just a brief idea of how to, de-escalate. But if I can hear what my neighbor's having to say and then try to figure out a way to apologize without moving from my own position by apologizing for the perception or the impact, it now opens an avenue for me to create a dialogue so we can try to create an integrated solution that's a win-win for the both of us.
Fantastic. And you're listening to Violence Serves No Purpose. I am your host, Jacque Howard. You're listening to WIMG 1300 on the AM dial. And I'm speaking to the Reverend Dr. D.A. Graham, who has a consulting business, DNA Consulting, LLC. Telephone number is 888-374-8184. And DA's been sharing with us different ways to handle conflict, conflict resolution. And he shared with us his background. He's been a military man. He's got several degrees. He was brought from sunny California with his wife to so nice weather, Trenton, New Jersey. But he's making a major impact in our community, not only by guest preaching and his consulting business, but also with organizations that are actually action-driven programs like Beautiful Trenton. So, D.A., everyone talks about the issues of violence in the city of Trenton. In the next minute or so, with your experience as a conflict resolutionist, 30 seconds, elevator speech, what do you think is something that we can do as individuals to make an impact?
Two things. One, openness, which is transparency, and a willingness to dialogue, a willingness to come to the table and even have dissenting voices at the table. And we do it with respect. We do it with transparency, as I said before. We do it with giving people voice. We do it by helping others understand that I don't have to agree with you, but I will hear you. And that's important. And
I think that's a perfect way to finish up. You've been listening to Violence Serves No Purpose. I've been your host, Jacque Howard, and you've been listening over WIMG 1300 on the AM dial. Over the internet, we can be heard at WIMG1300.com. And if you're watching us on television, you are watching on WZBN, Channel 25 in Mercer County, New Jersey. My guest tonight has been the Reverend Dr. D.A. Graham of DNAconsultingllc.com. Again, telephone number 888-374-8184, and email as well, dagraham, GRAHAM, @consultant.com. And again, this has been Violence Serves No Purpose, and you've been listening to WIMG 1300 on the AM dial, WIMG1300.com, and watching on WZBN Channel 25 in Mercer County, New Jersey.
Walk blindly to the light and reach out for